Oh, we need to get to the ridiculous news of the day. Randy Moss likes to say stupid things. I don't know why. And people like applaud him for it. They're like, hey, do it again, Randy. So this time he says he's the greatest wide receiver of all time. And Jerry Rice is like 3 or 4. So my question to you, Maverick, is who had a better career, Randy Moss or Jerry Rice?
So I saw maybe 0 of Jerry Rice's prime, but I still know he is better than Randy Moss. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Well, I mean, look, real quick. Jerry Rice was playing into his 40s. Randy Moss was basically done at 32. He stunk at 33. He retired at 34. He came back to the 49ers at 35. Was like the number 3 receiver on the depth chart and then retired again. He had some good seasons in Minnesota on teams that weren't that great. I mean, he was great number 2 option to Chris Carter. Chris Carter was the number 1 guy. Randy Moss, you couldn't stop him. But then when Chris Carter retired and Randy Moss was the number 1 guy, that team went nowhere. And then he was a malcontent. And then he was famously the guy who said, I'll play when I want to play. That's not how Jerry Rice played. You may not know about Jerry Rice, but he played all the freaking time. He was the hardest practicer of all time, and he played forever. So it's a joke comparison. I mean, I think you could actually argue that Jerry Rice is the greatest team sport athlete of all time, like better than Jordan, better than Pele. The longevity, the rings, the accolades, I mean, different coaches, quarterbacks, everything. Jerry Rice, shut up, Randy Moss. Get the hell out of here. Who the hell do you think you are? Not Jerry Rice, apparently. Okay, let's move on. And then we got to answer a question, but this is kind of in the same vein. He also said he had a better career than Terrell Owens. Maybe that's arguable. I guess it is arguable. They were the same era. You watched them play, right?
I saw both play, and I know Randy Moss never carried a team to the Super Bowl on a broken leg. So that's why I'll take T.O. in that scenario. But T.O., his biggest knock is his locker room problems, all the drama he stirred up. But Randy Moss stirred up a lot of stuff, especially at the end of his career and with the Raiders. So it's not like Randy Moss has a clean resume in terms of best teammate. And T.O. never had Tom Brady in his prime. So I'm biased towards T.O. because he's my favorite NFL player of all time. So I'll take him anyways. But I think he is better than Randy Moss.
I agree. T.O. was at a lot of times he was a negative impact on his own team. You can't have a guy calling out his own quarterback consistently. I mean, he was a lot of ways a bad teammate, but at the same time, you never had to question his effort. You never was like, hey, is Terrell Owens going to run full out on this play? Is Terrell Owens going to cut off his route? Is Terrell Owens going to run over the middle? You never had to wonder that. Randy Moss would not run over the middle. This is a true story. When he was on the Raiders, one of their plays called for him to run an in-breaking route over the infield, the dirt. And Andrew Walter was the quarterback. Andrew Walter drops back, looking for Randy Moss running this in-breaking route over the dirt. He's not there. He's running a fly route over the up the sideline. Andrew Walter throws it where Randy Moss is supposed to be, gets intercepted. Moss goes back to the sideline. The coach is like, yo, what the hell was that? You're supposed to run a dig. And he goes, oh, yeah. Randy don't run on dirt. That was what he said. Yeah. Randy don't run on dirt. So that was Randy Moss. He would just run whatever route he wanted to run. He wouldn't go over the middle. He wasn't tough. He was great at what he did. And he's one of the greatest wide receivers of all time, but I'll take T.O. over him.
So I wasn't in the locker room at the time, but I believe you were covering the team when Randy was on the 49ers, correct? Yeah. How harmful do you think he was to Crabtree's career? Because I think both could be considered divas, at least in their Niner tenure.
I don't think Crabtree cared at all about Randy Moss.
You don't? Okay.
I think Crabtree is the kind of guy who had such a big ego. He kind of was like, Randy, get the hell out of here. This is my team. Dude, you're old. Crabtree was at this end of the locker room. Randy Moss was at the other end. And I think Crabtree looked at Randy Moss as like, dude, who the hell are you? If you can fathom that. Michael Crabtree thought he was like the Michael Jordan of the NBA. He really thought that. He did. So that's the way I saw it. He wasn't like hanging around Randy like, hey, Randy. Like, no. He was very self-composed. Good question, though. T.O., I mean, his knock was his hands and his personality was bizarre. But Randy Moss had effort questions. Forget that. Sorry. He's kind of overrated, in my opinion.